So today, I'm going to talk about the gift of acceptance, the lessons I learned from my mother. Yeah, you know my mother. So, have you ever had a memory activated or triggered by like a particular smell, time of the year, like change of the season, and it brings you right back to that place? That memory is so visceral and vivid that you relive it over and over again. Well, for me, this time of the year brings me back to a time in July of 2012. It was as hot and humid as it is today. Just one of those icky summer hot days. And well, the memory started where I was at work. I got a call from a friend of mine who said that something was going on in Wayne. So my mom lives in Wayne, and she said something was going on and maybe I should check on her. Maybe a water main break, the power's out, something along those lines. So I called my mom to check on her, and she didn't answer the phone. So it's not unusual for her. I mean, my mother is like a professional phone screener. She doesn't answer, if you call unannounced, anything, she will not, she holds her ground. So she does not answer the phone. So I wasn't really that concerned, but it was, something I thought, well, maybe I better just go check on her. Maybe I better just stop by, see what's going on, so in case she was worried. So I drove into Wayne. I only work about 10 minutes away from there. I drove to Wayne and pulled into the street, and the street was kind of blocked off. So I parked and just walked across the street, figuring rather than figure out where to go. And, parked the car, walked across the street, turned around, looked up, entire place is on fire. Entire building is on fire, 5-alarm fire in flames. Wasn't expecting that, obviously. There were police, ambulances, firefighters, people screaming, complete chaos and pandemonium in this moment. And I stood there kind of paralyzed, and then in panic, and then trying to mobilize to what do I do in this moment? And then my panic deepened as I couldn't locate my mother. Her car was there, and she was nowhere to be found. I'm asking people, like, where is she? Where is she? Have you seen her? Have you seen her? No, I haven't seen her. And then someone said, well, the good news is that the firefighters knocked on every door and to warn everyone. And I thought, well, she doesn't hear very well. And again, she doesn't answer the door. So that's not good. That made me panic even more. So I was nowhere to be found, and I was scrambling around. They were not giving out any information. And I run into my brother, whom I was not expecting to be there because I didn't think there was a problem. Somehow he found out, and he went to my mom's house, and he said, that he'd gotten a call from my mom. So I asked him, I said, where's mommy? We still call her mommy, right? 70-year-old brother and I still call her mommy. So mommy, where's mommy? He said, don't worry, they're counting for all the people in the clubhouse. Everyone is okay. Pets and residents are all fine. So thankfully, that was it. That's all that mattered in that moment. So as we stood there in chaos, really mesmerized by what was happening, watching this huge fire take this complex down, it was a horrible moment of just panic and helplessness and fear. People were screaming. People had lost like loved ones' ashes and cash they had stored, wedding rings, all kinds of things, and they were just trapped in this fire. And this was not, they were going to implode this building. So it was not good. So my mother was totally calm. She was taking it all in like she was in a movie, and it was happening to someone else. And I assumed she was in shock. Figured she was in shock and she was just but she seemed quite aware of what was happening. And we were just making plans. What do we do? Like, what do you do next? Do you just get in your car and leave? Do you do something? Who's taking mommy? What are we doing with mommy? What's going on here? So we tried to kind of coordinate those things. And out of the corner of my eye, I see, remember Pablo Guzman? Right? I see Pablo Guzman, Channel 2 news anchor. So I see him out of the corner of my eye, and there's hundreds of people, and he's like making a beeline to us. And I thought, I don't have the bandwidth to talk to this guy like right about now. But I think he really wanted my mother. So of all the people, he was determined to talk to her, found her, and decided to interview her. Now, my main concern is that my mother can be a little bit of a wild card. We don't know what she's going to say. And we don't need this documented on the news for all to see. And I was concerned, it's inappropriate, and just, I don't think that's what he wanted. So again, he was determined. And so amidst the chaos, he tried to elicit a response from her. So how does it feel to have lost everything? The fire, this horrible people, the alarm, when did you hear it? Tell me all about it. Like all those kinds of questions that he was trying to get her to, you wanted a good story. So my mother in that moment simply said, all is well. I am safe. We are all safe. I am just living in this moment. Everything is fine. Each moment is a new moment, and in the next moment becomes a new moment, and so on and so on. And then she rolled into some sort of meta prayer that may we all be free of suffering and peace. And she just started, she's on this roll. And Pablo was not happy about this response. It was 1,000 degrees outside. He's in a suit, sweating. He's in this, and he's, now he's lost his patience for this because he's, clearly not getting the response he was. He was a little perplexed. He was a little uncomfortable because it seemed he thought she was maybe in shock, having a moment of something, some outer body experience or something. So she wasn't complying. And she said, I'm not in shock. I know exactly what's happening. We're here in this moment. The fire is yesterday's news. We are in this moment now. And so Pablo kind of walked away, and that was it. And it was actually on the news, but he edited it, so not this part. So my mother was really like the Dalai Lama in that moment, fully present, and it was not the typical response one would expect, but it was her typical response. I was kind of proud of her inner trust. She just walked through this with such grace. And as we looked around, there were all these tangible memories and reminders that were hostage to this situation. And again, no one was getting into that building. But I overheard a resident say, the firemen said that there was one unit that was fully intact. Everything else was burned, water, everything, but there was one pristine unit up there with everything as it was before the fire. Yeah, it was hers. Yeah, it was hers, and of course it was hers. I just knew it was hers. So, I asked her, I said, why do you think your unit was preserved? What was that about? And she said that she asks for protection each and every day, and she is always protected and always gets help. And she just knows this to be true. So it was such a startling contrast to be looking at her stuff. We'd gotten some binoculars. My brother had gone home, gotten some binoculars. We're looking at her stuff, her life, her size 6 little white sneakers, her ham sandwich, her Archangel Michael warrior protector picture she had drawn on the wall. This big angel picture. We could see it all. It was life, but it was not going to be again. It was her stuff, but it wasn't her life, but it was her mementos of these things. She had one thing and one thing only she really, really wanted. And this was a book she was writing. For the past several decades, she had been writing a book on spirituality. So she had all her life's wisdom and teachings and all this that she was putting into this book. And she was old school with it, right? Wrote it, it was on paper. It was not, not going to be saved, so we thought. And, it was just ironic that was seemingly gone and she was living these lessons. This was a real rubber meets the road moment to test her spirituality. So for the next couple years, we rebuilt and the complex was imploded and rebuilt and she ended up going home. And P.S., as they were going to implode the building inspector had gone in there, went into her unit, grabbed what he could, and brought her what he thought was most important, which was her book, her Archangel Michael picture, her angel picture, a hand-painted picture of my late brother, and my grandmother's clock. So he knew intuitively exactly the pieces to pick from all her things, which was such a beautiful thing. So this image of this burning building really stayed with me for a while. It was so overwhelming, and not only the vision of it, but the heat of it. It was not only 100 degrees out anyway, there was the heat from this building. And it was very profound for me. So I wondered, what was this about? I really felt that we were meant to walk through this for some reason. There was some lesson in this. Wasn't quite sure what it was. But I thought about it, and my mother just kept saying, this is not a tragedy. A little inconvenience. It's not a tragedy. It was a reminder that all are safe. People can't be replaced, and that life is impermanent. It's all about impermanence. Still, the message was really about accepting what is happening now, seeing it, embracing it, not looking back and not looking forward. Things end. Things change in each and every moment. Nothing stays the same. Whether it's tragic events or ordinary days events, nothing changes. My mother had a deep compassion for people's loss and the trauma of it all, but trusted that everyone was going to be okay as she sat in that gratitude. She wasn't indifferent or detached. She was not okay with this, not saying that this didn't affect her in any way, shape, or form, and she understood the enormity of it for so many people. But in that moment, she was making a conscious choice to respond by not responding. Just being, which changed her experience and provided peace. My mother studied spirituality for many years, and I think it can be easy to practice mindfulness and acceptance when you're not in the midst of a tragedy or a chaotic situation. So she really took her lessons and applied them to her life. So as she sat deeply in each of these moments over the time we spent together, her mood had a quality of almost joy, which seemed unusual. She again wasn't happy, but it seemed odd. But she was in the moment, right at the intersection of the duality of the situation, where she was sitting on the side of joy, in that everyone was okay and that she was deeply loved. I was really fascinated by her response. For all its good and bad, she was living in this moment. She was fully alive in this moment. So most of the people were focused on the details. How did this start? Who's going to pay for this? How are we doing this? What are we going to do? All the things that, people wanted to find the answers to why this happened and how this could have happened. And she was not interested. She really didn't. It didn't matter because that had happened already. So sometimes we live our lives and our lives are not the way we want them to be. Sometimes our lives are not the way we want them to be. For me, the house was a metaphor for our lives. Houses and burning houses can be a metaphor for our lives. So often, we do not want the house we have right now. Sometimes we want the old house, the one that held the happier times, before the loss, before marriages ended, before things happened, before tragedies. Not the burned down house we might have, the one that holds our life's challenges, the sadness, the grief, loneliness, mistreatment, the house that is unhappy. Rather, we get stuck in the past and we dream of the house when the house was happier and hopeful. We tend to cling to that, the one before the fire. Or we can get stuck in the unhappy house of the past because we haven't really reconciled the pain or accepted that things are as they were. And we long for a different outcome. Or we dream of the house we'll have someday. The house will be better when we're finally happy, when we retire, when we get married, when we are financially secure, when. That, maybe. All the things that reside in the future or not, the things that bring us happiness, peace someday. Holding on to the way we think life should be rather than what it is can cause us suffering. We need to be present in the house we reside in right now. Living in the moment is acceptance. That is a spiritual lesson. Acceptance and embracing the reality that life changes. There are transitions. People come, people go. Illness, aging, happy moments, life, death, birth. Things happen and transitions happen. Although we know this, it's hard to accept. It's hard. Again, we seek meaning in the journey if we examine what is rather than what should be. Look in unexpected places, sometimes places that are not pretty. Besides wanting to live in happier times, why do we resist our present house? Human nature is to hang on to or cling to the familiar because uncertainty can scare us. That's where fear comes from. The loss of control can scare us. We can live in the past because we know the story. Good or bad, we know how it ends. Although we really cannot control anything, we're human. Not having the life we want, facing the moments in reality can be emotionally painful. We want to avoid pain. The outcome, sometimes good, sometimes bad. There's an implied safety in certainty. We believe we can control or bypass the painful parts of life. That doesn't really work. It can be difficult sitting in our present life, our painful experiences, difficult emotions that can leave us vulnerable and cracked open. And distress can really be overwhelming. It's all real. And honor and seek support if this is real. This is not easy, and we are human. And if one experiences trauma or anything of those, you need to honor that and find the help and support that you need. but we struggle with acceptance. It's when we consciously choose to stop resisting and embrace the lesson. Part of the beauty of life is unpredictable. Nothing is permanent, everything changes, and unexpected things happen that will transform who we are. Our spiritual lesson is to cultivate the ability to accept whatever comes and embrace it while cultivating acceptance. Acceptance does not mean you need to like what is happening or that you're giving up. You're simply being honest and aware that things are the way they are. Accept and not resist. We can find peace in the chaos if we choose to not react in chaos. My mother modeled trust, not control, acceptance, looking for the lesson, embracing the blessing, and relying on community, people. So the experience with the fire brought out a lot, but I'd like to leave you with the lessons I got from my mother. She taught me to trust in things, in yourself, in the way that things are, rather than the way they are supposed to be. She taught me strength and resilience, persistence and faith. The strength comes from leaning into it all. She taught me we are personally responsible for our thoughts, feelings, and understanding. She taught me to have gratitude for all and compassion for ourselves and others. She taught me that life is ever-changing and impermanent, and we should not be overly attached to things, relationships, or outcomes. If we do not own anything, nothing will own us. She taught me that people matter, hearts matter, and love matters. She taught me that our spiritual influences come in all forms, like one's mother. But our greatest teacher is our internal teacher. She taught me to see the blessings in the presence of each moment and the power of conscious choices. There are gifts in being present for all lessons. She reinforced the idea that things do not happen to us, they happen for us. She taught me each moment unfolds as it is meant to, and again, to trust in it all.
If you like this video, please like us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and click on the bell to be notified whenever we post a new video. Thank you.